Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
So we are entering into a new phase of the teachings. We just finished a section that concluded with the 8 verses of thought transformation. And now we are preparing to engage in the structure of the Lamrim Chenmo, the stages of the path to enlightenment. So we're picking up the text right here, and it's going to begin with the big categories of the path, which is divided into 3 different types of motivation. So we're getting ready to now engage in this full path. And the beauty of it is that we can engage at different levels of motivation and engagement. So let us take a look at the text here. So, paths for spiritual development. To attain the Buddhist qualities, we need to develop many diverse aspects of our body, speech, and mind. Throughout the ages, Buddhist masters have used various paradigms that set out a progressive path to do this. And in this chapter, we will explore some of these. These step-by-step presentations outline a systematic path that allows each person to practice at his or her own level and progress in a comfortable and gradual way. So that's really key here, is step by step. It's just available. Here's a path. Here's a plan. Here's a way of being, and we can be at different stages of the path. We can enter it at different levels with different motivations, but they're laid out in this very systematic way, which I find just incredibly beneficial. It's about this Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So we'll begin with Arya Deva's presentation of 3 stages of the path, which is only 4 sentences long. It's about as condensed as you can get. First, prevent the demeritorious. So first, prevent this unmeritorious actions. Next, prevent self. Later, prevent views of all kinds. Whoever knows this, of this, is wise. That's it. Just 3 things to do. We got it. Prevent the demeritorious, then prevent the self, and then later prevent views of all kinds. Then we're there. It's like the shortest Buddhist path text available. This verse may be understood in 2 ways. In the first prevent the demeritorious. Indicates the necessity of abandoning the 10 paths of non-virtue and practicing the 10 paths of virtue in order to prevent an unfortunate rebirth and to gain a fortunate one. Also, it's how to have happiness, right? So virtue, cause of happiness; non-virtue, cause of suffering. So first we stop doing all that other stuff and we start doing the virtuous activities. We cultivate this path of virtue. Now, let's see. Next, prevent self. Means to abandon grasping at the coarse self of persons, a self-sufficient, substantially existent person. while abandoning this grasping does not bring arhatship or Buddhahood, it does stop the coarse afflictions, which is beneficial. Now that's a lot to unpack there, and we'll talk more. But when we look at modern Western psychology, and they recognize that between 80 and 90% of mental and emotional afflictions are based in something that's not true. Well, that's what we're talking about here. If I stop grasping onto myself, people, places, and things in a way that we don't exist, I'm going to suffer less in this life. And, and that's where they're just talking about catastrophizing, cognitive distortions, emotions that are disproportionate to what's happening, the things that we can get caught up in. And so, this goes right to that point, that if we can stop that clinging and grasping and reifying people, places, things, events, myself in ways that it's not how we exist, you're going to suffer a lot less. Now, whether it's numbers 80% or 90% or 50% or whatever, it's real clear that it will reduce my afflictive states significantly. We think about all the things we worry about that never happened, or all the things that we feared about, all the things that we carry with us that have already happened and aren't actually happening now. And there's a lot of opportunity there. So that, well done. Later, prevent views of all kinds indicates realizing emptiness of true existence and employing this wisdom to eradicate all afflictions from the root. So, really stop doing the non-virtuous things, doing the virtuous things. Stop grasping to self in a way we don't exist, and then ultimately seeing things accurately, empty, which doesn't mean they don't exist. We're just recognizing this dynamic of the way we perceive them to exist and the empty nature of that. So that's one way of looking at it, 1, 2, 3. A second way to approach this verse is to start with the final goal and work backward. To attain full awakening, all cognitive obscurations must be eradicated, as indicated by later prevent all kinds of views. So it's kind of like, okay, I would just like to be free of all this. So let's eradicate all wrong views. So we're starting at the end. However, to eliminate these is not sufficient to just contemplate object clear light, the ultimate nature emptiness, based on subtle dependent arising, just not meditate on the emptiness based on dependent arising. Not going to get you there. From the viewpoint of highest Yoga Tantra, we must manifest subject clear light, the subtlest mind that arises after, and there will be a test on this, 80 conceptions and 3 appearances have dissolved, and use it to realize suchness, right? Emptiness. Prior to this, we must realize emptiness and eradicate the afflictive obscurations, as indicated by next, prevent self. So you're kind of going backwards. So in order to get to the ultimate, you still need to do the previous step. In order to do this, we need a continuous series of good rebirths in which we can practice the Dharma. The way to attain these is to first prevent the demeritorious, the 10 paths of non-virtue. So basically saying, you still got to do all the other stuff. But why would you go back and forth with that? Why would you go, okay, you do this and then you do that, and then you get here? Or if I want to get there, I need to go back and do this and do this and do that. And that's the differentiating 2 paths that are very common in Tibetan Buddhism. One is the path of accumulation. I want to get there. So I'm starting where I'm at. I'm going to get there. I'm going to watch my mind. I'm going to engage in virtue. I'm going to tame this mind, train my mind. I'm going to work my way through understanding myself and my experience. Eventually, at some point, full awakening. Path of accumulation. And the other one is that you're already a Buddha. So it's really a path where you're discarding things that I'm already there. I just don't know it, haven't realized it, and it's much more shedding all the obscurations. But even to do that, of course, we need to be virtuous and so forth. But there's a different mindset a little bit. Like I have this way to go versus technically I'm already there and I just need to remove stuff. And so it makes a real difference. I mean, imagine if you actually had an inkling that underneath all the franticness, underneath all the afflictions, underneath all of that, like you're already okay. I mean, just to know that, like, yeah. I mean, you're already, that's like, you're halfway there in a sense, you just, because you're already there. And it softens the afflictions, it's like, just, okay, letting go. Whereas the other one going, yeah, I've got a clear path. I know how to get there, got a map. I'm starting where I'm at. I'm on my way, which is still good. They're both good, but they are very different sort of mindset. Path of discovery is one that's used with Dzogchen and Mahamudra, and typically found in Nyingma and Kagyu traditions. Gelug and Sakya are tend to be more of the accumulation. And so both good. But they're really sort of a different mindset. Even though it kind of seems like you're doing the same thing. Well, technically you are doing the same thing, sort of. Okay. In the lamp of the path, the Atisha sets out 3 stages of the path according to 3 levels of practitioners. Great, medium, and initial. It's going to have some nice charts in here too. It just breaks it down. So these 3 levels. The path of the person of great spiritual development eliminates the cognitive obscuration so that he or she can become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings most effectively. So this would be full Buddhahood, complete awakening. This individual aims for the highest, longest lasting bliss and peace for self and others, full awakening, and thus wants to extinguish dukkha and its causes for both self and others. The cognitive obscurations that impede full awakening are the subtle latencies of ignorance and the appearance of inherent existence that they create. To remove these, the person must cultivate bodhicitta, practice the 6 perfections, and unite serenity, that's shamatha, serenity, that calm abiding, and insight, so shamatha, vipassana, on subtle emptiness. This is the path of the practitioner of great capacity, path of a bodhisattva, full enlightenment, Buddhahood. The path of the person of medium spiritual development eliminates the afflictive obscurations, the afflictions, their seeds, and polluted karma that cause rebirth in cyclic existence. Basically gets you out of samsara. Non-samsara, you're an arhat. The peace of nirvana that is free from the cycle of uncontrolled rebirth. To do this, he or she practices the 3 higher trainings, motivated by the determination to be free from cyclic existence and attain liberation. The 3 higher trainings is the Noble Eightfold Path, put into 3 categories: ethics, concentration, wisdom. I didn't know what those other 80 things were, but I'm good with this one. So that's the Theravada tradition, Noble Eightfold Path, attain nirvana. You don't have to have all these rebirths. The path of the person of initial spiritual development eliminates coarse negativities such as the 10 paths of non-virtue, killing, stealing, unwise, and unkind sexual misconduct. Sexual conduct. Lying, divisive speech, harsh words, idle talk, covetousness, malice, and wrong views. So those are the 10 non-virtuous. These 10 cause unfortunate rebirths in the future, as well as constant problems in this life. The beginning practitioner seeks the happiness in cyclic existence that comes from pacifying the gross, mistaken thoughts, words, and deeds. I'm gonna pause there for just a minute. You want to, close that door? I did unlock it, so thanks. As soon as Sam leaves the room, we'll get into the real deep stuff here. That was a joke. The three motivations, then, number one is this idea of I want good rebirths. I don't want to suffer much. I want to be happier. So virtue is the basis for that. Now, second is, okay, I want liberation. And so the Noble Eightfold Path will get you there. And third, Bodhisattva path. And we're going to get down to how they're all intertwined. However, I always like to emphasize a fourth motivation, which is I would like to be happy in samsara. I'd be happy in this life. I don't know about all this rebirth stuff. I want to suffer less, and I want to have a fulfilling life in a human form, and feel pretty good when I pass it, and eventually. And so that is also going to be based on virtue and a mixture of the others, right? It's virtue, so the source of all happiness, right? Virtue, source of all suffering, non-virtue. But those mental afflictions, the catastrophizing, the cognitive distortions, thinking errors, all that, well, we're going to need some wisdom. And then if we think about our relationships, we're going to need some compassion and loving kindness and so forth. So the blend of these also provide what I would call a fourth motivation, which I actually think is really the first. I think we all come in here, we're humans, want a good life, want to do things that are meaningful, want my kids to be happy, want to be able to take care of, family, want to die without regret. I mean, so that motivation is just as relevant and can utilize all of these resources. And I think it's a barrier if people have to pick one of these three. The fourth one, I think, is where most human beings are. And so I think it's really important to go, look, I know I got here, I just want to suffer less. That's I don't know about all this other stuff, I just want to suffer less. Now, it may ripen that you might graduate to a different motivation, but let's not think I need to be one of these or embrace any of that. It's much more of, okay, do my mental and emotional sufferings come from wrong views? Well, let me check. Does my happiness come from being ethical and virtuous and, feeling good about my choices? Well, let's check. So if I can live with more virtue in a way that's more accurate, according to all this, you're going to be happier, more resilient, have more joy, and live a meaningful life. So I think that's not a waste of life. Matter of fact, Lama Allen, as Ned mentioned, a life dedicated to virtue is not a life wasted at all. So good to just know where we're at be okay with where we're at, and don't try to reach beyond something that doesn't make sense or doesn't feel right. Because then we're just fooling ourselves. Just fooling ourselves. Okay. So now that he's broken down these three, and that these are all, that's the voice of His Holiness there. To express this path in forward sequence, a practitioner, so we're going to go forward and backwards again, right? The practitioner must first and most urgently reduce their gross afflictions and harmful actions and practice the path of 10 constructive actions, right? 10 virtuous activities, wholesome actions. Although this ultimate goal may be nirvana or awakening, we're back to the he and his. Sorry, I keep wanting to be they and them. So let me rephrase that. Although their ultimate goal may be nirvana or awakening, they must first deal with the most blatant obstacles to happiness by taking a defensive stand against them. They must especially prevent taking an unfortunate rebirth that would forestall their being able to practice the path for a long time. So we still need to do this. Second level is the actual combat, going on the offensive. So first I'm blocking all that negative stuff. Now I'm on the offensive to destroy the afflictions. A practitioner who is victorious over them attains nirvana. The third step is to remove the latencies or stains left in the mind stream by the afflictions. Having eliminated these, the practitioner becomes a fully awakened Buddha. And they got a nice chart here, which, we'll look at in a moment. So here's the idea. The idea is that I am blocked from recognizing my Buddha nature because I have these misperceptions, I have this conditioning, I have this karma and klesha, these afflictive states. And what happens is I start removing them. I start removing them first and foremost by engaging in virtue, avoiding non-virtue, start cleaning up the karma, things are more clear, there's more peace, more ease. Then go on the offensive. I'm going to cut through the core root of those things that cause me to get angry, resentful, frustrated, and all that. I'm going to cut through those afflictions. And then now it's much lighter, right? All the obscurations are few. And if I totally cut through and attain nirvana, I have cut through the root of misperception, free of all this. Not caught up in karma, not caught up in cyclic existence. I'm an arhat. But at this stage, there's still this light, subtle obscurations. It's very faint. The way they describe it, it's kind of like if you overcooked, let's say, some eggs in the room, right? Kind of smelly when you've overcooked some eggs. Burnt some. Okay, you can take the eggs out of the room, but there's still like a smell, right? It's like that. It's like there's this faint odor residue of the misperceptions that's still in the mind stream that prevents. It's the difference between arhat and a fully awakened Buddha. And so the bodhisattva path would actually cut through that very faint bit of obscuration and full Buddhahood. And then they always want to emphasize, it's not about one being better than the other, any of those things. Any arhat is pretty good compared to what I am. And, so these things will ripen within ourselves, and it's very possible arhats can, desire to become Buddhas and so forth. So that's the structure. And if we remember this, that my samsara is not out there, my samsara is my mind. This is all dealing with my mind. It's all dealing with my mind. I change, and my experience of all this changes. Which is good to know if you don't want annoying people in your life. Because you don't have to change them. I change, and now I don't have so many annoying people now. A good, tangible way to understand this. I change, and then I don't have so many, because I realize they're not the annoying. So I'm attending to them, and I can shift that. Okay, let's take a look at the chart. Oops, that didn't work out very well. Try to zoom in, and it just flipped. I'm not sure I can make it bigger. Let's see. Yeah. Well, there's a chart here. Take my word for it, for those of you on like 8 font. So we got this nice chart. The initial, their direct aim, fortunate rebirth. And then, what do you practice? Really practicing, working with the body, speech, and mind, the unwholesome, to avoid those and to cultivate the wholesome. So they cultivate a way of being more virtuous, more ethical, and they'll eliminate the 10 non-virtues. Middle, liberation or hardship. Work on the 3 higher trainings. That's the Noble Eightfold Path. And they're going to eliminate the afflictive obscurations, their seeds, and the polluted karma causing rebirth in samsara. And then they have it labeled here, advanced full awakening, Buddhahood. What they practice, 6 perfections, 4 ways of gathering disciples, Vajrayana. And they'll cut through all cognitive obscurations, latencies of affliction, and appearance of all inherent existence. So these 3 levels or capacities of practitioners form the basic outline for the presentation of the teachings in this book. Certain meditations are prescribed to cultivate the motivation specific to each level, and other meditations to actualize the intended result of that motivation. So each category has these very specific practices. The meditations on precious human life, death, and gross impermanence, and the possibility of taking unfortunate rebirth help us generate the aspiration to have a fortunate rebirth. So that's the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, right? We attain such a rebirth by taking refuge in the 3 jewels, observing the law of karma. So for those of you who are ready and think about rebirth, it's good to know that the cause for another human rebirth like this is virtue. Body, speech, and mind. That's what we work on. Meditations on the first 2 of the 4 truths inspire aspiration for liberation within us. So that's the truth of suffering, truth of cause of suffering. Generating true paths by practicing the 3 higher trainings will bring about true cessations and liberation, path of an arhat. So the meditations then are going to focus on these 3 higher trainings and a real emphasis on truth of suffering, the cause of suffering. Meditation on the 7-point cause and effect instruction and the meditation on equalizing, exchanging self for others are the methods to generate bodhicitta, the aspiration for full awakening to benefit all beings. So these are 2 practices of a bodhisattva, 2 meditations. 7-point cause and effect is a process of going through, and you meditate till you get realization on one, you go to the next. It produces the cause to the next. And it starts with seeing all beings, having been your mother, cared for you and so forth. And you work your way through all 7. The 7th is actually attainment of bodhicitta, great compassion for all beings, this great love. There's another practice. It's one, you could do one or the other. They're both equal. It's called equalizing and exchanging self for others. Those are the two main primary practices of meditation to cultivate bodhicitta. So now he's got a chart, so I'll wait. The method that leads to awakening is the practice of the 6 perfections. So the 6 perfections and the 4 ways of gathering disciples and the Vajrayana. So here we got another chart, goes through that same process. And, what are the meditations? And what are you going to practice, right? So it's kind of nice. Things are broken down in stages. Here's what you practice. Here's the things that we do. Again, it's all very general. And as we get into the text, be very specific. There are 2 types of initial capacity practitioners, one superior and one inferior. Woo. Wow, where's the acronymity here? Okay. Superior initial capacity practitioners seek higher rebirth as a human or celestial being. Although they also seek the betterment of this life, their main focus is to create the causes for fortunate future lives. Lesser individuals, boy, I sure don't like these words, think only of the betterment of this life and do not prepare for future lives, although they may still create virtuous karma through being generous, living ethically, and so on. Those of you who grew up in cultures where the belief in rebirth is not prevalent may initially come to Buddhism with the motivation simply to improve the quality of this life. At the moment, you are ordinary, initial level individuals who would like to experience less stress and anger, better relationships, improved health, and more peace of mind in this life. And you look to the Buddhist teachings as a way to that end. By using the Dharma to become a more balanced person, you will engage in fewer destructive actions, more constructive ones. As time goes on, you will learn about the existence of future lives, cyclic existence, liberation, awakening, and the paths leading to them. As you think about these topics and gain conviction in them, your perspective will expand and you will want to create the causes to have a peaceful death and good rebirth. And you'll become aware of the dangers of cyclic existence and aspire to free yourself from it. As your heart opens to others more and more, the thought of attaining awakening for the benefit of all beings will grow in your heart. In this way, you'll progress on the path in an organic way. So that's a pretty matter of factly. It's pretty interesting. So I'm gonna, I don't know, let's take a look at that next paragraph, as it might be expanding upon that. Yeah, no, pause there. So the point being made here is, if we come in, and for me, I came in that way. I came in just mind and not suffer, and I dabbled in meditation, and I dabbled in a few things. And then I found a Buddhist center, and I found a teacher, and rather organically, this kind of process did happen for me. For me, it was things that seemed impossible, inconceivable in my mind. Later it just became, well, that's just, of course, that's the way it is. And I was able to understand things I couldn't understand before in a way that has just been, just something I couldn't conceive of before. But again, we don't need to sit there and think, well, I need to go through all that. The underlying message here is be where you are. And don't try to falsely grasp onto where you think you need to be. Rather, is this stuff working? Is it applying in your life? Is it meaningful? Do you, all those things, do I suffer less? And all these things happen. Well, if they're all happening, then what generally happens is as I see more clearly, I understand more clearly, and then these things would evolve, but not falsely. So there's no need to think I need to be that way, or that that's absolutely how it's going to be. It's much more the investigative path that the Buddha emphasized, which is test it. If your mind's more tamed, more trained, if I'm more present, if I engage in more virtue, if I understand this very subjective experience I have and know that I experience thoughts and feelings, I'm not my thoughts and feelings, do I have more peace? Do I have more capacity to respond to life? Yeah, if that works, then that's the way it unfolds. And so that's what he's saying about an organic way. Don't need to pretend to want or be something I'm not. All of Buddha's teachings about truth. I mean, that's the whole point. And if they can't be questioned, we're in the wrong place. Need to be questioned, need to be poked at, need to be tried, tested, experimented. That's how we get any realization. All right, so let me take a look at the next piece I'm going to point out here. While Buddhism speaks about the importance of preparing for future lives, this does not mean that we should disregard this life. If we want to have favorable future lives, properly taking care of this life by being an honest person who refrains from harming or cheating others is important. By keeping good ethical conduct, we will have fewer problems in this life and will create causes for fortunate future lives. The past practice by these three levels of practitioners are not separate paths. One person passes through all three stages as they progress. To remove the cognitive obscurations preventing full awakening, we must remove afflictive obscurations and free ourselves from the sufferings of cyclic existence. To attain liberation by severing the afflictions from the root, we must first rein in the attachment to the happiness of this life, which stimulates us to engage in the destructive path of action. In this way, practitioners with initial, middle, and advanced capacities refer to one person at three different times in their spiritual journey. Such a practitioner gradually and sequentially develops the three different levels, each one indispensable for those that follow. So that's a good point to sit with for a minute. And for me, I have found that it's so complementary that if I want a good, peaceful life, be more ethical, well, compassion, and the six perfections, which is the greater capacity, well, they're going to help me in this life. And if I want to have less mental, emotional afflictions, these three higher trainings, they're going to be really beneficial there in attacking the misperceptions. They all work together, and it's not linear in a sense, even though my capacities might seem somewhat linear. The practice is not always so much. So I'll pause there, see if anyone has any questions, thoughts, jokes, good story to tell.
I appreciate that last bit about it not being linear. I feel like I'm all three. I'm on all three of those places. Probably most of the time, I just don't want to suffer in this life, but other times I feel really motivated to be a bodhisattva and to come back again and again, and why not? So I just hope that that I can keep growing, in the right direction and not just stay stuck in this life.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. We may find that we might have a certain mind on Tuesday and a different mind on Wednesday. Or in my case, a really good fired up one at 8 a.m., but in 3 in the afternoon, I'm maybe not as there as I was. And so understanding that we are always in flux, our mind stream's always in flux. I'm becoming. This mind stream's a river, not a stagnant pond. And how I am in this moment and now in a new moment, when those thoughts, feelings, emotions come and go, that we're a flow. And so, yeah, sometimes we'll be at different motivations. And sometimes we might be just, the heck with all this. And then, some months later, well, maybe that stuff was kind of working. It's pretty good. And so allowing us to have those ebbs and flows is pretty natural. And I know people that, had devoted themselves for like 20 years and, engaged in all kinds of practices. And, some things went astray in their path and in their, with their environment. And they just know, this is not for me. And then, I've come back, and have wakened up in a whole new way. And I don't think they wasted their time either when they are engaged or not engaged. I think both together brought them to that higher sort of focused way of being. And so that's also important to remember, is that the times where we are just on the opposite end of this might be the conditions for you to be on some realization of it later. Often we need to discover what doesn't work to figure out what does work. And so ebb and flow. Ebb and flow. Yeah, it's going to be like that, huh? So take a little peek at the text. See if we might finish this little piece here. On the other hand, the practice for each of these three individuals is complete. If at present we wish only for a fortunate rebirth, we'll find a complete method to actualize our aspiration in the path of the capacity, of the initial capacity practitioner, on the basis of first practicing the initial level. Middle level practitioners will find a complete path to fulfill their aspiration for liberation in the practice of the middle level. If we seek full awakening, we will proceed through all three stages by first practicing the first two stages, which lead us to practice the advanced path. For advanced practitioners, the first two paths are said to be the paths in common with initial capacity practitioners and middle capacity practitioners, because they are not exclusively for the initial and middle capacity practitioners. In common with means, the third one incorporates them all. So now, sometimes it may seem like we're repeating things quite a bit. You get in that sense sometimes. Reframe it. And it's because they really want to parse things and be very clear and very specific. And so very subtle things get explained very, very precisely. After all, this is a step-by-step stage of the path to full awakening, and so very, very, specific and valuable to look at things from different angles, even just very subtly. So this is the entry point. We have done a lot of work to kind of give Buddhist worldview, to approach a Buddhist path. now we're getting the path. Now we're getting the structure of the path. And the baseline is these 3 higher trains: ethics, concentration, and wisdom. Right. So the ethics piece, that's, first motivation. All 3, second. We look at the 6 perfections. You know what we're going to have in there? 6 perfections. Ethics. No, it's generosity first. Ethics. Patience. Look at you. I nailed it. Okay, so we said generosity, we said ethics, we said patience. Then it's
Joyous effort.
yeah, joyous effort. Woo! And then concentration and wisdom. So you'll notice the 3 higher trainings are already within the 6 perfections in common with. So even though we're going to go through these different specific trainings, if one focused on the 6 perfections, right, which is the path of a bodhisattva, you would include everything for a really good quality human life in this life form, right? Not a bad way to go right there. There's generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom. Pretty good way of living. And so that's a nice thing to put in our pocket. Okay, here's something very tangible. I can be a little more generous. I can be more ethical. I can, work on patience. I can, and now the thing that makes the 6 perfections a bodhisattva path versus just a good human life is the motivation piece. So when they describe the 6 perfections, we just did a retreat on that, right? Okay, good. They're described with this motivation in a way to benefit all beings. So maybe we're not there, but if we engage in those 6 with the motivation to be a good human being and be helpful to others, then we got a pretty good human life with a lot less suffering. So just a nice, sometimes keeping things really fundamental can be transformative. And at the core of all this, it's so important to remember, rather than get lost in all the theory and analytical nature of things, all of these things are fundamentally to teach us to be loving and kind. I'm going to be a lot more loving and kind if I understand interdependence and how people, are trying to get their needs met just like me. I'm going to be a lot more loving and kind in my families and my relationships. All of these are fundamentally really going to just get us to be good human beings with a kind heart. And if we can do that, this is working. If we do all this analytical blah, 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 and don't have a kind heart, this is not working. It's not about what I know. It's about how to soften my heart, how to recognize that I have a life because of you. I have a life because of others. I have a life because of those I've never even met. I exist in dependence upon the kindness of others. And I'm a part of this experience and have something to offer. Then we're right on the right track. But pretty easy to get caught up in the books I read and the charts and all that, and totally miss the whole point, which is be kind. I mean, that's where we're going here. So it's nice to have the framework for laying out a path, but let's be nice to our neighbor. Let's be kind to the people in front of us. Let's understand that my frustration or afflictions has a lot to do with my mind. And let's work on that and see how we can engage in this world in a way that's a little more productive and meaningful for us. So that, I think, would be a good note to wrap on and see if anyone has come up with anything you'd like to share before we close. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we have already cultivated on this. Did I mention we have hoodies? You got zipped up hoodies, yeah, it's saying t-shirts, little fundraiser. Don't want you all to miss out on that, just saying.
You never have too many hoodies.
I'll tell you what, the zipper up ones, woo, I got mine hanging up right there. I wore it today. Man, you're amazed how much attention I get, from the cats and the dogs wearing the hoodie. Like, man, maybe that guy will pet me. Yeah. This dog on the way home, Ollie, he's ready every day. All right. Let me see what that little chat message. Oh, okay, Rachel posted the schedule. Okay, good. Let us take a moment now to recognize that we have cultivated our hearts and minds. We have cultivated merit and wisdom. And this opportunity we have to dedicate our collective time together, and all merit that we have cultivated, we can dedicate this for the benefit of all beings, that all beings may benefit from our time together, be free of suffering, and that we may use this collective merit to improve ourselves in ways that are truly meaningful for the benefit of all beings. And let's dedicate. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, well.
Dare do dare, do re so ha. Om dare do dare, do re so